So today we're taking a look at an older topic, and we're going to find out whether a cheap graphics card can maybe save your old family PC. So this right here is that old family PC that we saved from the bin, and I'll link a video to that down below, but for those of you who don't know, it's a fairly bog standard affair from around 10 years ago, and it features a Core 2 Quad Q8200, a mediocre processor by today's standards, but something that was relatively solid a decade ago, and 4GB of RAM. Although worst of all on this PC's mix is it has an ancient and pretty terrible Radeon HD 3450, which in the video limited us quite a lot. So for those of you that are trying to get into gaming and end up running your games in resolutions that make the PS2 seem powerful, why don't we find out if a better graphics card can save your system by upgrading one that's probably quite similar, by upgrading this system. So this here is a box of graphics cards, my big box of graphics cards. And before anyone gets too excited, it is mostly ones that are either too terrible to sell, or worth very little money, meaning that it's not worth getting around to actually selling them. But there are actually a few decent ones in here that I haven't actually got round to getting rid of. Some top contenders for me were the Radeon HD 6870, something that featured on the channel a long time ago. In fact, it was like my third video on the channel and not a very good one. There was also a GTX 470, which was around from ages ago and I don't even think I've actually tested. But then I found another one, the GTX 570. Now, I did pick this up a long time ago, and it was my top budget graphics card of the year, and was way more than overkill for a type of system like this. For anyone that wants a detailed rundown, there is a video somewhere on my channel, and all of the budget tech channels have had their go at it. RMD Tech's got a new one out for 2019, so if you want to find out how it actually performs in a modern system, go check out this. But anyway, how actually is this graphics card decent today? As a quick refresher, the card was based on the Fermi 2 architecture and performed really well in my last retest, running most modern titles in high definition resolutions, with the only downside being that it ate through quite a lot of power while doing so, usually hovering around 150 watts of usage, although it can be less than this in a system where it's limited, which is likely what we're going to be facing today. Either way, it has plenty of VRAM with 1.2GB of GDDR5 VRAM, and the latest drivers are really solid. Yes, they're out of date, no, it's not receiving any more support, but unlike AMD's terrible Terascale drivers, Fermi by Nvidia has been left with really solid example of drivers that even have proper DirectX 12 support, so you know, very very nice to use. It's not bad for a cheapo graphics card being found for well under £20 nowadays. In fact, some people have even been finding these things for £5 to £10 nowadays. But if anything, it is overkill for this system, and will definitely not be the limiting factor when it comes to running any games. But anyway, that brings the total cost of this PC to, well, not very much. So why don't we throw this all together and find out, can adding a cheap graphics card save your old family computer? Or an old computer, whatever you want to say. And here it is. I did have to reseat the graphics card as it was a bit temperamental at first, but after this we were good to go, and I did most of my benchmarking on a debloated Windows 10 install, just for the DirectX 12 features as I want to be able to use them. I did briefly test on Windows 7, but we saw the same FPS regardless, so let's jump straight into it and find out, can a £10 graphics card save your old PC? Or, well, mine. I decided to start out with something very basic, something the PC could do okay beforehand. As long as okay means that it ran the game in 800 by 600 and could hardly stay above 30 FPS. But anyway, that was good by the standards we were running on before. But now, well, we're running the game in full HD and seeing a solid 92 FPS on average. It's not competitive by CSGO standards as it has some strange frame time pacing issues, but it sure was playable, and we were definitely being limited by the old Core 2 quad in the PC. Off to a good start either way, especially given the game is free to play now, so if you wanted to get into this, well, a graphics card could be all you need. From here we have possibly the biggest transformation yet. You may remember GTA 5 on this PC. It worked well in 240p, but that's even pushing the definition of well a bit. Either way, the game could run really well with a new graphics card running at twice the frame rate and actually look like the game we remember. I would crank up the graphics a bit, as I know our graphics card can definitely handle it. But do remember, we only have 4GB of RAM. A big reminder that some issues you can run into with a PC aren't just graphics card related. From here though, why don't we up the ante a little bit with Doom? Which really blew me away. Here we have a fully modern AAA title running decently on what are some very modest and actually very low-end specs. And it's not running all too badly too. I played through the beginning segment and heavy action could definitely cause some stutters here or there. But once again, we have an ancient processor and not much RAM. But still, for the most part, I was honestly amazed. The game was very playable. Areas you will have issues in are modern titles with very little in the way of optimizations. When PUBG eventually did load in, it hardly ran. I mean, sure, the average looks okay at 13 FPS, but it would only get this when you weren't moving and you were standing still. As soon as you pushed a key, or move the mouse, it would become worse than a slideshow, so modern games like this are a no-no on the PC. We originally tested Oblivion on the PC, but that now runs so well that I just didn't even bother benchmarking it. I just went straight ahead and stuck Skyrim on it and stuck it at high settings, and we went from there. And I'm pretty sure that most of us can agree this was definitely a solid showing all round, and definitely shows the golden era of games to run on a PC like this. Those titles from around 5 years ago that still don't expect much more than 4GB of RAM, yet can actually run with very high settings as long as you give it a modernish graphics card. Indie titles like The Forest show just what a few years ago could have got you when you ran some awesome looking titles on the computer. With very nice graphical settings and some high resolutions, not to mention a very stable frame rate, it shows that, all you need sometimes is a bit of a better graphics card. We couldn't have a hope in hell of running this on the old HD3450 or the integrated graphics that were on the computer, but now, well, just look at what we're seeing. Finally, I tested one of my favourite games at the moment with Islanders, and well, it ran very, very well, showing that if you're only into modern indie titles, well, you can play the latest and greatest with ultra settings, MSAA, whatever you want really, and even then you'll be getting double-digit frame rates. Sorry, I mean triple-digit frame rates. It ran that well. Oh, and fans of the city builder genre, do go check this out. It's such an interesting idea of gameplay, where your progress isn't really what matters, it's about moving on. But this is where the issues start. See, I did try to benchmark as many modern games as possible, and that's all well and good with the titles that actually did work, and most of them worked really well. But the issues is, now that we have such a good graphics card in our system, we're highly CPU and RAM limited, and there's no point investing any more into such an old PC, because most modern titles will straight up refuse to work on platforms this old now, and multitasking with a lot of these AAA games can be a pain in the arse. Older ones will be absolutely fine, but keep in mind, if you want to talk to your friends with most clients, well, a PC like this will struggle if you're trying to play something modern at the same time, as frame rates can tank by up to twice as much as what you'd expect if you're running something like Chrome in the background. So yeah, you have to stick to just gaming. Anywho, to show you an idea of the performance increase in 3D Mark's CloudGate benchmark, we saw some interesting things. So CPU-wise, well, it's still showing its age around the 2,500 mark, but graphics-wise, okay, I get it, this graphics card is overkill for an older benchmark, but we have just gone from a measly 904 on the Radeon to an incredible 32,252. Now, I know this GPU is definitely the best part of this graphics card, but it just goes to show that we've gone from games like Doom 3 being a struggle to the new Doom being an absolute doddle. The best rhyme that's ever come out of a budget builds video. In fact, this new graphics card was so good that we were able to run the new DirectX 12 benchmark, so please do make of the results what you will. It mostly just tells us this system is ancient, but still. So there you have it. A new graphics card and an old PC, and what have we learnt? Well, much the same as we already knew, which is why this was a bit of a quicker video from me, but I guess there was a bit of new information to be found from this. It's really getting to the last legs of this being a viable option compared to how it used to be. You might remember 5 or so years ago, all the videos on YouTube would tell you just to grab your old family computer, bung something like this together, and well, you could play all the latest and greatest games. I mean, we've seen that. You could play Skyrim on the highest quality settings for not much money. But unfortunately now, it'll get you by. And that's about all it's going to do. I'm definitely impressed, and I'm definitely going to say it was viable, especially with a Core 2 quad era of machines, but they are getting to be on their last legs, which is definitely a shame. But hey, it does work for the time being, and it's cheap to do so, but don't go trying to upgrade these things to high-end Core 2 quads, as you're going to be so limited by the platform, you're better off just going to buy an i5. It's not going to cost you much more, especially nowadays. But anyway, it does make me quite interested, so I will get around to doing a follow-up to see how far we can push a Core 2 quad system, and maybe how far you could go with a PC like this. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, even if it was a bit of a shorter one. Good night. So, this was definitely a bit of a rough, shorter one, while I work on something atom-sized, shall we say. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one. You can always like and subscribe for more budget PC content like this, or my other stuff, or whatever I make.